Hello and welcome to the video. Today I want to go through the Python code that we posted onto our social media, and we asked you to have a look and see what you thought the error was. Let's go through. This is a bit of code that actually does a quiz for Bonfire night. So it's going to ask the user a question: what year was the gunpowder plot? If they answer the year 1605, it's going to print that they're right, and then go on to question 2. Otherwise, it's going to print that isn't right, have another go, and then it's going to reload that subroutine there, question 1. So it will basically repeat and go back through this if they don't get the answer right. So have a look at the code. I'll give you a minute or so, see if you can have a think about what that error is. Okay, I've given you enough time there. Let's try and run this code. Let's actually see what Python error comes up. So we're going to click on the run. I'm just going to make sure that our output is visible here as well for you. So the run button is up here. So I've clicked on the run button. There's nothing wrong with this program here. Nothing is actually showing up on the screen. Can we think about why that is? Why is nothing coming up on the screen? Why is nothing showing up in our output here? The answer is quite simple, and it's something that we as teachers see time and time again. We see it often when we've taught students subroutines and functions for the first time. Now, what I always stress to my students, a subroutine or a function will only ever run when you call it. Now, we do have a call to this subroutine, this question 1 down here, but that's actually within our subroutine. You'll see that it's indented all the way over here. So that will not actually run our program, and we want to keep that subroutine there at line 8 because we want to call the subroutine, and this literally acts as a bit of a loop. So if they get the question wrong, that isn't right, have another go. It's going to call the subroutine. Remember, we can call the same subroutine from within the subroutine, and it'll just go back to the start. So what we actually are missing here, we are missing our first call to our subroutine question 1. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to type in, I'm going to make sure that my call to the subroutine is right over to the left hand side, because this is the first thing that we actually want to call. This is the first bit of code that we want to actually run. So I'm going to write question 1 bracket bracket, that's going to call this subroutine. Let's see if that has solved all our problems. Let's click on run. Great, so you'll notice here now we do have that output there in what year was the gunpowder plot. So we are running this subroutine on question 1 here. We've got to this first bit here, question 1 answer, that is our variable, and we're expecting an input. So let's just get this wrong. Okay, so we have the date 1645 down here. Let's put that in and see if we get asked the same question again, because this should, if it's not correct, if it's not 1605, it should go to this line 6 else. Print, that isn't right, have another go. So let's just see about that. That isn't right, have another go. In what year was the gunpowder plot? Right, let's get this correct this time. So we're going to put in 1605. And you are right. Oh, but here we go. We've got an error. Name, question 2 is not defined on line 5. So line 5, we're actually calling another subroutine there called question 2. Now, let's say that you have invented this quiz, you are just trying to test it for now, but in the future, what you might want to do is actually add in another subroutine called question 2 and ask them some more questions about the gunpowder plot. So this one, we would need to actually create another subroutine called question 2 if we wanted that to run. So this is a kind of production error here, because maybe we're just in the middle of this quiz. Maybe we were going to actually add this subroutine in. So we could actually just comment it out. Remember, in Python, we have comments, and our comments, we just add a hashtag in front of it, and Python will basically ignore that question 2 there. So we could run that. It'll print to your right, and then it should exit the program. Let's just go through that. Let's just make sure that works. So let's try that again. I'm going to get the answer correct. It's 1605. And you are right. When we're right, there's no more code there. We exit out of this loop, and there is no more code to run. Brilliant. That works fine. Now, if we did want to actually make that subroutine question 2, we would in an ideal world, we would need to put it up here. Define question 2, bracket, and colon. You'll notice that it indents for us, which is very nice. If we don't put that colon in, little tip for you, if you don't put that colon in, it won't indent for you and you're going to be getting into a bit of a mess. So make sure you always put that colon at the end of a subroutine or a function, and that will indent the code for you automatically instead of having to go back and indent it yourself. So question 2, I'm just going to put very basic, this is question 2. Just so that we know it's working, because we are programmers and our programs sort of evolve over time. Okay, so let's run that again. Let's make sure that when we get it right, we go to that question 2 and print this is question 2. And then if we were going to go develop this further, we'd add another variable in and ask another input and ask another question. So let's run that. So I'm going to put in 1605. I'm going to get the correct answer. You are right. And then we go to this is question 2. Fantastic. Our program is working fine. Another thing that we could say is an error is that we are asking for a numerical input. So question 1, answer is equal to input. In what year was the gunpowder plot? We're expecting a numerical input from the users. What we could do to make sure that we do get numerical input, we could actually tell Python that we are expecting a numerical input. What we could do, we could put int, which stands for integer. So the variable here, question 1 answer, we're expecting a numerical input from the user, int brackets input. So we have 2 braces at the end, 2 brackets at the end, and we just need to change our line 6 here. So instead of accepting a string of 1605, what we're going to do, we're just going to get rid of these speech marks around 1605, and you'll see it's actually changed color for us, so it's a nice little purple color now. That actually indicates to us and indicates to Python that we're expecting a numerical value, so 1605. And if we run this now, in what year was the gunpowder plot? If we put 1605 in, everything's going to be fine. You are right, this is question 2. If we try to input 1605 in text, if we type that in, it's going to bring this error up here. Value error, invalid literal for int. What it's saying is that, hang on, I'm Python, I expected a numerical input because you've put int, which means integer, which is a number, and you've actually given me some text. You've given me a string. So it doesn't know what to do with it. It's going to throw that error there. What we could also do is put something a little better in for the prompt. In what year was the gunpowder plot? Please enter in numbers, for example. So make sure that your prompt is really clear for the user so that they don't enter a load of gibberish in and you get errors in your program. Big takeaways from this code error here. Remember that in order to run a subroutine or a function, we need to call it. If it's the first subroutine that we need to run, this code needs to be all the way to the left hand side. It should not be indented. If we indented it, it would become part of the subroutine. One of the other things that you might have learned today as well is that we can call subroutines from within its own subroutine. So this is quite useful actually for going back over code. Instead of doing a while loop, we can literally just call the same subroutine and it will kind of do the same thing. So some people find this easier, or some students find it easier to just recall the subroutine as opposed to going through their while loops, which can get a bit complicated. So this is another way of doing it. And as we say, there are loads and loads of ways to do things in Python. There's not just one answer. And the second one, again, if we are in active development in our program, obviously you are going to get errors if you declare something or if you try to get something to run that hasn't been declared somewhere else. So some of the things that we do as programmers, we sometimes just put a dummy subroutine or function in and just put a simple print statement in so that it will run, so we can make sure that we are calling that subroutine or function and making sure that it calls it correctly when needed. So those were the errors in this one. Hopefully you got them right, or hopefully you learnt something as you were doing this, as you were going through this video. Don't forget to check out some of our other resources on our website, computerscience.co.uk. Thanks very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.